ASU just won the Big 12, but no one is buying them.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Richie Bradshaw, your guide, your friend, your expert for all things Sun Devils, from the gridiron to the hardwood and everything in between. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Why on earth is ASU still being overlooked? On today's agenda, is ASU the most disrespected conference champion of the last several years? Why is no one taking account returning production for this team? And why are you going to regret this decision? All that is coming up on today's show. Before we get started, though, thanks to each and every single one of you guys for tuning in to make Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Look, I don't think it is dramatic to say that ASU is one of the most disrespected reigning conference champions in recent years. Let's look at it from a Power 4 level, and we will include Pac-12 RIP teams in the meantime. And we see the champions, and it feels like going into next year, majority of the people look at those programs and they're like, oh, yeah, they could definitely run it back. But we look at Arizona State, and there's a little bit of that thought, right? There's a little bit of, well, they could run it back, but there it is. What's that? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Are we missing the point of what ASU was able to do last year, right? They were the underdogs, very literally, like the underdogs, picked 16th in the media poll, which we no longer have, by the way. So if you are looking to check out a media poll for the Big 12, go ahead and check out mine that came out earlier this week, where I put out my all conference teams and all that good stuff, albeit with two players who aren't even in the conference anymore. Good job doing your homework there, Richie. And all sorts of other good stuff. Go ahead and make that your second listen of the day. Picked 16th. By the way, I did not pick them 16th in my poll. What a surprise. I don't know how that happened. But then ASU finished first. ASU went on to finish first in the Big 12. One of the biggest underdog stories that I could possibly think of. And they did it with a team that was considered to be lackluster. They did it with a team that certainly did not have NFL talent, according to some programs in the SEC. And they did it with a team that was going into year two of a complete and total utter rebuild. There is no denying that at all. You were coming off of one of the worst situations that an NCAA program has ever faced before. You were not supposed to be this good this quickly. And we're going to talk about it in the second segment with this returning production. But there are so many things even beyond that. Like the roster retention for me, that's my biggest deal. What does this team lose? Cam Scadaboo, the people's running back, right? The person whose jersey I am wearing today. So if you're on YouTube, you can go ahead and check that out and appreciate it. But I get it. You lose Cam Scadaboo. In 2 years, became a program legend. Put him in the Ring of Honor. Like, put him in ASU Athletics Hall of Fame. He did unbelievable things for the program. You lost him. Yeah, that's huge. Understatement of the century. That's huge. I've talked previously on the show. How do you replace him? Spoiler alert, you don't. You don't replace Cam Scadaboo. You hope to replace his numbers. Moneyball saying, right? Replace him in the aggregate. You have a collection of guys, Kyson Brown, Kanye Udo, Raleek Brown, Jason Brown, all sorts of other guys, right? You have stuff on the roster to help replace that production, not the player. So, okay, that kind of solves one major point. What else did we lose? Well, we lost Lee Fotanu, who is an all conference center. Yeah, that's a big loss, no doubt. Ben Coleman, who was honorable mention all conference last year, is kicking inside to center. And there's a lot of people, big heads in NFL circles, that think that that's a move that should be made for Ben Coleman's future. So we're going to find out how good he is there. And guess what? If it doesn't work, then you just move him back to left guard where he was an all conference honorable mention last year. He's really, really good. So there's my answer there. Okay, what else? Well, you lost pretty much your entire receiving core, right? Jordyn Tyson's back. More on that later. But Xavier Guillory, gone. Melcon Stovall, gone. Jake Smith, gone. Troy O'Mary, transferred. You did lose the vast majority of your receiving core. But again, first of all, you brought back Jordyn Tyson. And Jordyn Tyson outpaced every single one of those guys collectively. Take all of their yards, all of their yards. Guillory, Stovall, O'Mare, Smith, and Tyson still has more receiving yards, pretty convincingly more receiving yards. Certainly more touchdowns. Like, I just don't get it. I don't. But that is a massive loss. They replaced it. Malik McClain is back. He caught 2 passes last year. I understand. 40-yard pass in the Big 12 championship and a 42-yard touchdown in the Big 12 championship. Big play potential is there. We will see whether or not he can stack that. That is a big unknown with him. They bring in some guys though. They bring in Jalen Moss from Fresno State, who has collected over 1,000 yards over the last 2 seasons combined with the Bulldogs. He's going to be your starting slot receiver. He looks really good. You bring in Noble Johnson, former 4-star kid who was recruited by Clemson, hasn't gotten on the field much. Spoiler alert, Clemson's really good at recruiting receivers. So it hasn't been the easiest for him to get on the field, but the talent doesn't just dissipate, and he's got 3 more years of eligibility. Bring in Jaron Hamilton. Hamilton, really, really interesting. Coming from Alabama, he was highly recruited as well. 4-star, high 4-star. He's got deep speed, and he really popped off towards the end of spring ball. And he's going to be a guy that you need to pay attention to. There is major potential here with Jaron Hamilton. But they've got another secret weapon for me. Now, I'm higher on this kid than most, I think. If there's other people, please let me know. But Derek Eusebio is someone who is very intriguing to me. He had a whopping 1 reception last year for 64 yards and a touchdown. But ASU was lining him up in the slot during spring ball, and he looked really, really good. So I like the core that they have. Also, the entire tight end room is back, and you added to it. So Shimon Mateer, who was second on the team in receiving touchdowns last year, he was tied with Xavier Guillory, is back. They had Kamari Anderson in the portal from Kentucky. He looked phenomenal in spring ball. And I was kind of blown away because I wasn't sure what to do with him. And then he's performing, and I'm like, oh, he might be the starting tight end. Yep, over Mateer. They bring in AJ Ia, 4-star freshman. I've never seen a bigger freshman in my life. I felt dwarfed next to him. For the people who say ASU doesn't have like NFL size, talent, whatever, AJ Ia does as a freshman. It's insane. Shaden Fortier is healthy. He was a 4-star coming out, but he missed last season because he was recovering from ACL surgery. He's back, and I could see him getting some time playing out wide. He's just that good. He's that talented. So maybe you rely more on the tight end position this year than you have in previous years because the receiver room is vastly different compared to the tight end room. Well, that's okay, especially with how highly they have recruited that position. So that's going to be okay. Defensively, they return almost all the guys. So from a non-production standpoint, because again, we're going to dive into that later and I already dived into it a little bit more than I wanted to. There's a lot back. This is a team that also took Texas Longhorns, the Texas Longhorns, to the wire in double overtime in the Peach Bowl, one play away from winning that bad boy, excuse me, and advancing to the college football playoff, or to the college football playoff, to the semifinals to play Ohio State, which they probably would have lost that. But I mean, still having a playoff win is insanely impressive. They took that team to the wire. Did everyone suddenly forget that ASU was the hottest team in college football, arguably, when they had finished up the regular season on just a tirade of wins and Sam Leavitt was playing bonkers football? Apparently, because he's still back with the team and he is going to be playing off of that kind of hype and that kind of momentum going into the year. By the way, the roster retention is ridiculous. And that also includes the coaching staff, which everyone's back. Kenny Dillingham, he's back. Marcus Arroyo, he's back. Brian Ward, he's back. All of your positional coaches, they're back. So why is ASU not the runaway favorites? A team who ran the table to end the year with some big wins, by the way. They took down Kansas State in Manhattan. They took down BYU. They took down Iowa State handedly in the Big 12 championship game. They ran the table against really good teams and some that were contenders in the conference. That that's a shame. And especially because some of those teams are receiving the same amount of hype as ASU. Now, I did talk with Christian Rao from Locked On Kansas State on Monday. If you haven't checked out that episode, make that your second or your third listen of the day. I got all sorts of content for you guys. And I did mention that Kansas State is also getting some disrespect for not being one of the favorites, but they shouldn't be the favorite. And they're not considered the favorite. But there are some programs that I'm very curious about why they are one of the top favorites for this team. Why they are being in the same conversation as Arizona State blows my mind. But you know what? At the end of the day, there's a lot of really good things that are going on with this program. There's a lot of really good things. There's a lot to get excited about. There's a lot that should provide that level of confidence that ASU can run it back, and yet it's just not there. And I don't get it. If you guys have a reasoning, though, let me know in the comments. This returning production, ridiculous. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel now, because summer sports are in full swing, if you will. Whether it's baseball under the lights or golf on the green, high stakes soccer action, whatever that might be for you, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it more fun, more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, or heck, you can join them because guess what? They have a widget on your phone. You can track your apps, or not your apps, your bets while they are going on. I love FanDuel, even though they're having some disrespect towards ASU. But if you want to take ASU and their odds to win the conference, then go and take those odds. Or you can take a sleeper. That's up to you. Just know that new customers, your first $5 bet, when, not if, when it wins, you will get $150 in bonus bets. Go ahead, just open a FanDuel app for me today and visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning into Locked On Sun Devils and making us your first listen of the day. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Returning production, that's typically pretty important when you are looking to run things back as a conference champion. Fun fact, I don't know if you guys know this, and it certainly is not getting talked about the way that it should. ASU has the second most returning production from last season. among the nation, not the Big 12, the nation. That should be talked about a lot more than it currently is. And it blows my mind that it's not. How is that not one of the biggest stories in football right now? Not the Big 12, which I already feel like that's not talked about enough. We're talking about other programs right now. And I get it. It's fine. Whatever. But again, we're talking about how ASU is being disrespected right now. This is part of that disrespect is there's so many good things that are going on with this program right now. We're not talking about them. And the biggest thing is that retention. So I want to go back to Jordyn Tyson. Now I know I rattled off some information at the top of the show, more than I wanted to. But here's the thing. ASU passed for 3,213 yards last year collectively. That's between Sam Leavitt, Trenton Bourget, and Jeff Sims, who all saw the field last year and attempted at least a pass. Of that 3,213 yards, you are bringing back from Jordyn Tyson alone 1,101 of those yards. By the way, Tyson missed the Big 12 championship game and the Peach Bowl because he was recovering from an upper body injury. You won't find me definitively in the camp that ASU would have beat Texas if not for Jordyn Tyson being injured. I don't know if I'm 100% going to be able to get to that point. But what I can say, what I can understand is that you have one of the best receivers in college football. And going into 2025, there's an argument to be made he's the second best receiver in college football. Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, I just don't think it's deniable that he's the best of the best. He's a true sophomore. He would have been the first receiver off the board last year, would have been a top 5 pick last year. He would go into this year's cycle if he was eligible as the number 1 receiver and a potential top 5 pick. He's not eligible until 2027, where he will be the number 1 receiver on the board and viewed as a top 5 pick. Dude is generationally talented. But outside of him, Ryan Williams at Alabama, freak, dominant. He's also got a strong case to be one of the top receivers in the nation ahead of Jordyn Tyson, right? Him and Jeremiah Smith are sharing the college football 25 cover together. But Jordyn Tyson outpaced Ryan Williams last year. And Jordyn Tyson, I've said this so many times on the show, but I will continue to say it. From the time that him and Leavitt started connecting, which was week 8 against Kansas State, from the time that that game started getting going, Jordyn Tyson led the nation, not the Big 12, the nation in receiving yards. He was averaging close to 100 yards a game. He's scored seemingly every game. He was making big plays seemingly every game. He was a freak last year. And him and Leavitt, totally in sync. Those guys have telepathy with each other. They know where they're going to be at all times, whether you have to break off the route or create an audible at the line of scrimmage, or you got to find a way to get open. Sam is looking for Tyson, who averaged right about 10 targets per game last year, and they're going to connect. They're just a special combo, those two. So you do return more than a third of your passing production with Jordyn Tyson back. You're returning another 300 yards and 5 touchdowns with Shimon Mateer as well. Outside of that, I mean, you lose 605 yards from Jordyn Tyson. You lose 339 yards from Xavier Guillory. You lose 287 yards from Milcon Stovall. It's not that that's not nothing, but 1,100 yards and another 306 yards on top of that. That's almost half of your receiving production that will be returning from last year. The rushing production, that's a whole other story. Cam Scadaboo ran for over 1,700 yards last year, a program record 1,711 yards, and he missed a game. That's gone. After that, Sam Leavitt was the second leading rusher, 443. Kyson Brown was third with 351. And then after that, it drops to Carlos Brooks with 148. That is a dramatic drop off, which is why, again, I say you're not replacing Cam Scadaboo. You just hope to replace the numbers. If you can find a way to get Kyson Brown and Kanye Udo, who are expected to be some order of running back one, running back two, if they can combine for 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns is a lot, but if you can sniff that production, then you're going to be fine. You may not have a Heisman Trophy contending running back, but you still take those numbers. Speaking of Heisman contending quarterbacks, though, Sam Leavitt's back, 2,885 passing yards last year. He missed a game, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He ran for over 400 yards. If you give him the sack yards again, which I hate sack yards, he is 574 rushing yards. True dual threat. He also had 5 scores last year as a runner. Sam Leavitt's a freak. He is truly a Heisman Trophy contending player. Very excited for him this year. But he's back. So you bring back your quarterback. Check. You bring back your number one receiver. Check. You add to the transfer portal to help bolster your running game. Check. Your tight end position becomes insanely deep. Check. Yeah, looks good. Think the passing game is going to be fine, and I think the run game will be good enough. It should be more than that. Offensive line, 4 or 5 starters are back, by the way. That's continuity right there. Defensively, what's missing? Shamari Simmons, huge loss. Huge loss, no denying that. Caleb McCullough, another big loss, no denying that. But other than that, I mean, you lose Jeff Clark on the interior of the defensive line. He was a rotational guy. And ASU has rotational guys still on the defensive line. CJ Fight is there. Zach Swanson is there. Jacob Richcon-Geika is there. They add through the transfer portal. They bring some young guys, some veteran guys. They're going to be fine. Even a linebacker, like, yeah, Caleb McCullough's gone, but you bring back everyone else. Keyshawn Elliott, all-conference player, is back. Jordan Crook is back. Cyrus Fiaseu is back. There's a lot of good stuff going on at linebacker. Pass rush. They didn't really upgrade it too much. It's unfortunate because ASU was not this dominant pass rushing team last year, but at least you're bringing what you had back. Prince Dorbah is back. Clayton Smith is back. Elijah O'Neal is back. You got the production you had last year back. You just hope that it dials up a little bit. The secondary, forget about it. Shamari Simmons is gone, sure. LT Welsh transfers out of the program. That was not a choice that was made by either side. That was forced. But Javen Robinson's back. He's your number one corner. Keith Abney is back. He's also your number one corner. Put him whatever order you would like. Xavion Alford, all-conference safety, going to be playing on Sundays. He's back. Miles Rouser, Ghost Rouser. He's back. So there you go. Your starting outside corners and your starting safeties are back. What do you do inside? Well, I mean, you got plenty of options that you've been developing, but you also add guys in the transfer portal. Kendrick Breedlove, currently the favorite to take on that role. You figured it out on defense. That is the vast majority of that team that is returning. That's the vast majority of your sack production. That is the vast majority of your turnover production. And that's the vast majority of your playmakers up front, who are one of the best teams against the run. Need I remind you, they shut down Texas and their run game in the Peach Bowl. And the week prior, they went bananas. Game prior, whatever. They went bananas against Clemson. They have a good run team. They certainly did not in the Peach Bowl. And that was when that defense was told they're not big enough. They're not strong enough to handle them. Well, looked like in that game. And there was NFL talent on that offensive line. 3 of their guys got drafted. That's all I'm saying. That's a lot of guys returning. Special teams, it got better. You didn't want to return what you had last year, honestly. So they upgraded. Perfect. Phenomenal. This team, at worst, is as good as last year. They won 11 games last year. They won the conference last year. Yeah, I'll take that every day of the week and twice on Saturdays. Returning production, absolutely insane. Second most in college football behind Clemson and ahead of Illinois. Do not sleep on Illinois, by the way. It's blows my mind. But you know what? That's neither here nor there. Because at the end of the day, if you're sleeping on ASU, you're going to come to regret that. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. So if you are one of those people who is sleeping on ASU, sorry, but you are going to regret that. I promise you. This is not the team. This is not the reigning champion that you should be sleeping on. It just flat out isn't. There is way too much here that ASU is going to be able to use to their advantage, right? First of all, they massively disrespected. And you give a team that kind of disrespect, they're going to use that fuel as fire. Do you think that being projected to finish dead last in the conference last year wasn't fuel to the fire? You better believe it was fuel to that fire. That's whiteboard material. That's bullet board material. That's hanging over your locker material. They were thinking about that all season long, and you could tell. You give a team that disrespect, they sit there and they go, and I took that personally. And they did. And they took that personally. So you already have that going for you. All that returning production's back. Sam Leavitt's back. Jordyn Tyson's back. Cam Scadaboo may be gone, but you bring back Leavitt to Tyson. That's that's it, man. That's it. And that offensive line is back. And say what you want about the offensive line. They gelled near the end of the season. They did struggle against Texas. Sure. Texas, insanely good front seven. That's one of the best front sevens in football. And they brought back the majority of it. Colin Simmons is back. Trey Moore is back. Anthony Hill is back. That defensive line is just monstrous. They're still going to produce, man. It's hard for any team to match up against them. It truly is. So I don't blame them for that at all. But I do look at the way they went from week 1 to the Big 12 championship game. And I see a completely different unit. They looked way more confident. They looked way more comfortable. The chemistry was clearly there. So there's that for you. That defense, everyone's returning, and you got the backup players too. Yeah, something I haven't really mentioned yet. It's not just the returning production, it's most of this 2 deep roster. It's the vast majority of your starters, and it's the vast majority of the guys directly behind them. Let's look at offensive line, because your skill position players are a little different, right? But the offensive line, return 4 starters. We've mentioned that an umpteenth amount of times. But all their depth is back too. Jalen Clem, we didn't see him last year. He was recovering from injury. He's back. I am super, super high on Jalen Clem. I think he's going to end up finding his way onto the field as a starter this year, and he is certainly going to be a starter next year if and when he returns. Sean Naa is back. They have Terrell Kim is returning. Champ Westbrooks is returning. Joey Sua is returning. Your immediate backups on the offensive line are back. So there you go. If something goes wrong, boom, have someone else to plug in who knows the system. That's huge. Defensively, I mentioned that your edge rushing room is back. That in itself is big. Justin Wadley is still there. Rowan Petrie, who we didn't get to see hardly at all last year, is there as well. Edge rushing room, everyone is back. Defensive interior, you lost Jeff Clark, but you're still holding on to CJ Fight. You're holding on to Jacob Richkongaika, Zach Swanson, Blazin Lonawong, who apparently is a excellent receiver, which just love that. What a great play. What a great play call, man. And they add to the room. Yep, okay, like that. I already said that all the linebackers are back. I don't need to go into that anymore. Secondary looks good. You have your starting 2 corners. They add Kendrick Breedlove. They add Nyland Green to help boost that depth. But guess what? Tony Lewis and Kuba is back. Ronnie Bemidge is back. Ronnie Bemidge will be a starter at some point this year. Mark my words. Mark my words. Chris Johnson Jr. is back. They've got Kyan McDonald is back. So you're too deep. If injuries happen, someone doesn't play up to their potential, plug someone in who knows the system. Perfect. They still have a good recruiting class too, by the way. But Corey Butler is going to find his way onto the field. Man Robinson may be your starting special teams guy. AJ Ia, I've already mentioned him. He's going to get on the field. They've got some dudes that can find the field this year. This is not a fluke team, man. This is not a fluke team. I understand you're fighting the allegations of being a Cinderella team, and you should be 100%. You came out of nowhere. You ran the table. Can you do it again? Especially when you lose your Heisman Trophy player. I get it. I do. I really, really do. But even then, why is ASU? Look, I love our friends over at FanDuel. Why is ASU tied for the top conference odds with Kansas State, who I just told you guys, I talked with Christian Rao yesterday for Locked On Kansas State. I do think Kansas State is being slept on, not by FanDuel at least, but who's is that? Is that Utah tied for the top odds with Arizona State and Kansas State to win the conference? Are you kidding me? We're doing this again. We're doing this again. I mean, it's a good team. They'll be a bowl team. I think Devin Dampier is an upgrade over what they had at quarterback last year. I think there's also a lot of turnover potential with him. What are we doing, man? We lose every year with Utah. They have simply not been what they were since they won the Pac-12 RIP back-to-back years. They are not that team. We can say that and it's okay. Texas Tech plus 650. That is the second odds after K-State, Utah, and ASU, who are plus 600. Texas Tech, they had one of the best off seasons in college football. They're very well run. They're very well coached. They're bringing their quarterback back. A lot of good stuff, but a lot of that was added through the transfer portal too. Does that work year one? Honestly, probably, because that's just a good team, but there's a chance it doesn't. Okay. Baylor plus 700. I'm big on Baylor. I have gone back and forth between Baylor and Texas Tech to play ASU in the Big 12 championship game, but I do still think that Baylor is a bit behind the board right now for ASU. They got hot at the end of last season as well, so you're hoping they carry that momentum. Sawyer Robertson, elite quarterback. TCU plus 750. I like TCU more than most, and I like Josh Hoover quite a bit. So they do have a shot. Iowa State plus 1,000. You lose Jalen Noel, you lose Jaden Higgins. Rocco Becht is still back. I feel like they're being overlooked right now. Kansas plus 1,600. I agree with that. A healthy Jalen Daniels changes that. BYU has dropped down to plus 1,900. If they can find stable quarterback play, that's still a good roster. But I look at all of that, right? And I look at what ASU has, and who's ASU beating right now? Neutral site. They beat Kansas State. I think that's a close game, but they beat them. They smash Utah. I'm sorry, Utah fans. You are not one of the major contenders for the conference. I think that you could be a sneaky contender, and I think you'll be better than last year significantly. You were not in that group. Texas Tech, that's a tough one, but I would take ASU, neutral site. Baylor, that's a tough one. I would take ASU, neutral site. TCU, ASU. Iowa State, ASU. Kansas, ASU. BYU, ASU. And I'm not crazy for saying that. In fact, going into the season, I'm going to wait, but there's a chance that ASU could and should be favored in every game that they play in this upcoming year. They have a very, very realistic shot to repeat as Big 12 champions. They're not under the radar this year, but yet they are. They're not under the radar in terms of like, we know who Arizona State is, but they're under the radar as like, can they repeat as champions? There's people out there who agree. Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to deny that at all. There's people out there who do love Arizona State, but there's far more people. Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football. Spencer, I love you to pieces. He likes Texas Tech the most. Well, everyone loves their paper champs. Everyone does. Texas Tech, Red Raider fans who still tune into the podcast, I do not mean to be super disrespectful to the team. This is just a pro ASU podcast. It happens. But I just don't get it, man. I just don't get it. So when, not if, when ASU dominates the conference again, you'll be sorry. When, not if, when ASU wins the conference again, you'll be sorry. And in a worst case scenario, when ASU finishes second at worst and still makes the college football playoff, there's your bold prediction, you'll be sorry. For anyone who is doubting ASU, for anyone who still wants to believe that ASU is a Cinderella team and they should not be given benefit of the doubt, that's on you. You're going to learn the hard way. That's not a smart idea. Way too much returning production, way too much consistency, and way too much disrespect. They took that personally last year. You think they're not noticing this year? They should be runaway favorites in the Big 12. I'll stand firm on that. But what do you guys think? Should ASU be runaway favorites? What is the biggest, most important factor returning for ASU that's not Sam Leavitt, Jordyn Tyson? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36. The podcast is there as well at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications, and you'll get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils to make us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Again, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Tomorrow's edition of the show, I'm sitting down, speaking of Texas Tech, with Chris Level from Locked On Texas Tech. The Red Raiders, look, I still love you guys. I do. It is not a disrespect thing. This is just an ASU podcast. I don't know what to tell you. You just got in the crosshairs on this episode. But me and Chris are going to talk tomorrow about why that could be the inevitable crash course for the Big 12 championship game. So I'll catch you then. And until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.